Hi, welcome back to part 2 of Talking Europe. In this part of the programme, we thought we'd go and find out how other countries within the European Union see Switzerland. So for that, we're going to pack our bags, take them and you across the border into Germany. Let's go.
My name is Norbert Linz. I'm chairman of the European Parliament's Agriculture Committee. I'm from the EPP and from Angela Merkel's CDU party, and I'm standing here close to the border stone between Germany and Switzerland. As a member of the Switzerland delegation of the European Parliament, I think our relationship is now better than years before. For example, especially the Swiss people voted against the limitation of the migration, and hopefully this will give a move to our negotiations.
Just looking specifically at farming, much like the EU, Switzerland spends big on its farm policy, has proportionately bigger subsidies for farmers than within the European Union. So who do you think has the better farm policy, the EU or Switzerland?
I think that the European Union has the better farm policy, but it's not easy to compare both, no? Because we have a different trade policy. But in the European Union, you can say there's a lot of planning security with the 7 years plan, and there is stability for the farmers.
There is stability for the farmers here in the European Union, but perhaps they might like to have a bit more money handed out to them, especially right now when there are bigger demands for farmers on things like sustainability, lower carbon emissions.
Yeah, I can understand that, yeah. But at the end, as you know, after the Corona crisis, there is less money, there's less budget from the taxpayers, and we have to live with this budget we got from the European Union.
Switzerland a third country, the United Kingdom becoming a full third country. At this point, many people in Britain are concerned that there could be what's known as a bonfire of regulations within farming and food production to make things cheaper for farmers, of course, but with lower standards for consumers at the end of it. Do you believe that this could come about?
This can happen in the future, and I see a lot of disadvantages for the farmers in the United Kingdom. I don't think that the UK government will establish, for example, a first pillar like the Common Agriculture Policy in the European Union and pay a direct payment scheme for the farmers in the UK.
At the same time, though, many farmers in the UK, they have complained that the Common Agricultural Policy is too restrictive on how they work.
I'm of the opinion it's really better to be inside this framework. I know there are a lot of rules which have to be fulfilled, but on the other hand, there's planning security, there is income stability, and there's a budget for the next 7 years, and there is a leadership in the world for a more greener agriculture policy, and this is positive for the farmers and for the consumers as well.
As we've already mentioned in the programme, the United Kingdom is soon to cross over into pastures new, a new relationship with the European Union. Now, recent surveys have shown that 9 out of 10 British people want their current food standards to be maintained after that happens. Is the government going to heed that call? Our correspondent with this report.
It's vaccination time for the cattle on this farm on the North Antrim coast. Each of the 400 cows gets a jab against pneumonia. Like elsewhere in Europe, the farmer believes in disease prevention rather than cure.
It's all about reduction in antibiotic usage. We have cut down our antibiotic usage right across the board in chickens, pigs, cattle and everything way down. So why import food from somewhere in the world that uses 100 times more, like America? We want legislation put in place to protect our standards going forward.
Along with 300 colleagues, Michelin star chef Alexis Gauthier wrote to Boris Johnson demanding a guarantee that the high standards of British farming will be upheld as part of any post-Brexit deals.
We don't know what trade deals are going to be like, but we presume that they are going to involve a lot of countries who have never had a chance, for example, to sell in Great Britain. So we'll be offering some articles, some items, which are impossible for people to resist in terms of price, and probably will be bad for them. And we know that. It's inevitable.
Ian Wright has a reason to be more optimistic. His federation and the farmers' unions were recently given official status by the government to scrutinise future trade deals on behalf of consumers.
Food standards aren't decided by governments, they're decided by shoppers and consumers. And I can't imagine any situation in which shoppers and consumers across the UK are going to be prepared to accept lower standards than they currently enjoy.
As the UK left the EU earlier this year, agricultural subsidies now come from the British purse at the same level as CAP for now. Farmers welcome what they see as the end of EU red tape, but they worry about the future.
I don't think many British farmers will mourn the CAP. What they are really concerned about is we have no idea what's going to replace it. I've planted all my crops, I have animals growing, and we have no idea how they're going to be sold, how we're going to trade, how we're going to operate as a farm.
Alexis Gauthier believes the farming landscape may look different post-Brexit, with an end to CAP payments per hectare and a new rural policy.
I think Brexit is going to bring an opportunity where we are going to say to farmers in UK, we might help you, but only if you protect the environment, that you protect the animal welfare, and you deliver some amazing stuff. And I think that's how it should be.
Agriculture contributes to less than 1% of the UK's GDP. Farmers' political influence is not as strong as in neighbouring countries. British farming produces only 60% of the food eaten in the country.
We do think they would be extremely silly to reduce home production of food. Farming has been here for centuries. People need to eat, and I think farming will be here for centuries.
To survive, UK farmers may need to adapt to a new and evolving marketplace, with prices volatile in the pandemic.
I am Julien de Normandie. I am the French Minister for Food and Agriculture.
Why do we even have the Common Agricultural Policy? We created it because Europe, which is above all a peace project, is also about protection, protecting all European people. And today we can clearly see that with the Common Agriculture Policy, that Europe has sovereignty in how it carries out its farming, and this is essential. Just look at what's happening right now with the COVID crisis. Let's just imagine that international trade had had the impact of stopping Europe from being sovereign over its own farming. What would have been the consequences? The reality is that our agriculture is strong and resilient, and this is down to the Common Agriculture Policy. The second element of the Common Agriculture Policy, and one which is particularly important for me, is that it protects via health and safety standards. As a European consumer, you can be assured of a certain level of food and production standards. I think that what we're going through at the moment shows the strength of the Common Agriculture Policy. The European continent needs this sovereignty and protection.
Sovereignty and protection from the CAP, but in Switzerland there's more money per capita put into farming. Does more money mean better outcomes?
France is a big recipient of funding from the Common Agriculture Policy, like a few other states, and it's very important. It makes up a significant part of our farmers' incomes. But there are other things. A farmer wants to live off the value that they create, not from subsidies. Let's be clear about that. A farmer is an entrepreneur. And my last point, here in France, I fought hard to put in place an agriculture recovery plan. We're going to dedicate 1.2 billion euros to financing things like modernisation, to increasing biosecurity in livestock farms, to finance the replanting of forests or hedges in certain types of farms. All this is on top of the common agriculture policy, and it's all investments for the future.
We're just looking at what might happen in the future for the UK. There has been a lot of mistrust that's grown up between Brussels and London during these Brexit talks. On farming, do you trust the UK government to keep its promises up to now that it won't lower its current food standards?
I'm the guarantor of the quality of products which will enter into Europe from Great Britain via the French border. That's my responsibility. Trust does not mean we do away with checks. So we will do checks. This is exactly why we've been getting ready for these checks for many months now. We need to maintain trust with our British friends. Our peoples are very close. We have common history. We're partners and friends. But it's true that because of Brexit, this divorce, we have to add some checks into this trusting relationship, especially in the realm of agriculture and agri-food products. Because choosing Brexit meant choosing to leave the common market. This has its consequences, and these consequences will be undeniable, so the UK has to take ownership of them.
Returning to all things British and Brexit now, you might know that British farmers were some of the most fervent supporters of the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. Now, they had on average been receiving around €34,000 a year each from the Common Agricultural Policy, but fervent supporters of Brexit insist that things will be better once the UK has started on its new path. Mathilde Benezet from our team has been shaking out the facts from the fakes.
British farmers have long been a driving force when it comes to relations with Europe. The Brexit campaign claims during the 2016 referendum were clear. Farmers will be better off if we leave the EU. The campaign promised British farmers' income from subsidies would be protected. In fact, they could even increase, like in Switzerland, Norway, or in Iceland. That has proved to be false. In February 2020, the British government announced that subsidy payments would drop by between 5 and 25% next year. A 5% decrease for big farms that receive more than £30,000 in aid, and all payments over £30,000 would be reduced by between 10 and 25%. The savings from those cuts will help fund subsidies for other farm sectors once European aid comes to an end. So in reality, these subsidies for small and medium-sized farms won't fall for now, but big farms will lose out. And for the sector as a whole, there's no increase on the horizon. What about the food Brits eat? The campaign promised that food standards wouldn't get worse. To make up for the lost subsidies, the government wants to sign free trade deals with countries like the United States, despite hygiene fears over their chlorine-washed chicken. That prompted 1 million Britons to sign a petition demanding food standards don't suffer. Faced with that public pressure, the UK's Agriculture Minister George Eustice promised to protect food standards in trade negotiations. But that protection claim isn't currently clear, as the promise isn't legally binding and the UK is still negotiating new free trade deals. And the UK Parliament has twice rejected plans to write the minister's promise into law in the next agricultural bill that will govern UK farming post-Brexit. Farm workers too have become a politicised issue. Brexiteers claim that temporary labourers from Eastern Europe are stealing jobs from British workers. But during the first lockdown, the farm sector faced a severe shortage of labourers. That forced the government to set up a website to help Britons find work in the fields. But that wasn't enough for some farmers who chartered flights to bring in workers from Romania, to the outrage of the Brexit camp. So were foreign labourers really stealing jobs from Britons? That's false. The British farmers said they needed experienced labourers to help train the UK workers who had signed up online. And in all, only about 450 Romanians flew into the UK to work, far from enough to fill the estimated 80,000 jobs needed to harvest the nation's fields. To make matters worse, out of 35,000 people who signed up on the UK's online service, only 5,500 actually had a job interview, leaving tens of thousands of vacant agricultural jobs for British people if they want them.
And that's it for this special Out and About edition of Talking Europe. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you really soon.